Hey folks, it's never too early to get in the Halloween spirit, and that's why October's free marketplace content is scary good. Treat yourself to wounded animations and a zombie AI, spooky landscapes, mysterious caves, a horrific dining room, and a set of surface trails. Don't miss these hauntingly helpful items and download them all for free on the UE Marketplace. Looking for even more free content? The Project Anywhere XR Sample project combines geospatial technology, global 3D terrain, and data streaming to visualize the world as 3D tiles in Unreal Engine, with help from the Cesium for Unreal plugin and Microsoft's Mixed Reality Toolkit. Snag the project from the marketplace and explore the scalable real-time simulation environment yourself. Whether you're an expert in design, storytelling, or just looking to learn more about digital twins, Build Architecture is the event for you. Join us on November 2nd for architectural configurators, digital twins, open worlds, and more. Get the full details on the Unreal Engine feed and register today. This month, the focus for Unreal Online Learning is on virtual production, with courses on both character animation and ray traced lighting. Then, on the flip side of high tech, we've got a course on how to make your game look like a 2D classic. Check out all the new courses and start leveling up your skills at the Unreal Online Learning portal. Or if you're up for the challenge, complete a select set of courses and evolve your game dev skill set to become a blueprint master. These Unreal Online Learning courses cover AI enemies, particle effects, fundamentals, and more. Sneak over to the feed to uncover the Blueprint Ninja Challenge details and enter for exclusive badges and mystery swag. For those following along in the Introduction to EOS series, the latest blog installment is now live. This week, learn how to use Epic Account Services in a C# solution using the Epic Online Services SDK to authenticate players. Visit dev.epicgames.com/news to dive in. Assembling heroes from across the multiverse, developer Netmarble delivered best-in-class mobile graphics in open-world MMORPG Marvel Future Revolution. Fly over to the latest developer interview to see how the team balanced performance with fidelity and more. Speaking of heroes, this week's top weekly karma earners are Clockwork Ocean, Every Nun, Shadow River, Devin Sherry, Miyagi1, Andrew R. Lukasik, Buffer Reader, Mayrin575, T. Sumisaki, and Chensi789789. Dashing over to our community spotlights from developer RenderCube, hunt, survive, build, and lead in the harsh Middle Ages in their genre-blending title, Medieval Dynasty. Create your own dynasty and ensure its long-lasting prosperity, or die trying. Now out of early access, begin your reign by downloading Medieval Dynasty from Steam. Take a couple of relaxing minutes to yourself with Rain Garden, a wonderfully crafted and tranquil indoor terrarium from Leo Therese. They've recreated an old project of theirs to try out the latest features in Unreal Engine 5. Share your feedback in the forums and get more details of their process on YouTube. As Detective Howard Chapman, armed with your trusty camera, investigate the mysterious incident of Earlson Island and stay alive at any cost. Act quick to experience the exclusive demo from Tiny Magicians by October 7th, but then wishlist the thrilling game on Steam. Thanks for watching this week's News and Community Spotlight. Hi, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host, Amanda Shade, and with me, I'm thrilled to welcome Alvaro Garcia Martinez, the director of Mayhem Mirror Studios. Welcome.
Hello, nice to be here finally. Super happy.
So yeah, we're really excited to have you on the show. It sounds like you're going to kind of tell us how you've gone from working with traditional film projects and techniques and have made an exciting journey into real time with Unreal Engine and have lots of really interesting tips and techniques that you'll share with us today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just being honest with you, Jan, in the very beginning, I timed how much content I can show. So I'm going to try to don't talk too much about myself and go jump into Unreal as much as I can, okay? So I'm going to start with a presentation just showing you my background and why it's important, the background in terms of this idea of blurring the line between virtual production and game development. And just a little bit of a line here, virtual production means anything that is virtual and anything that you produce, not just in-camera visual effects, means anything. Feature animation means video games, means cinematic, means LEDs, means everything that is virtual and you produce. So obviously, jumping to game dev is not always a smooth landing, but I want just to give you my background and you will understand this better. The reason why I split this slide is because it kind of summarizes this line that blurs virtual production and game development, but also professional VFX working and personal projects. During 10 years, I've been working in VFX, but at the same time, I've been working in my own pilots, my own games, my own ideas in parallel, not just one and then the other. It was completely in parallel. And the reason of highlighting this is because I do believe that having personal projects turns you into a better professional in these companies, and working in these companies fits a lot of the creativity and technical solutions into your projects. So this is more or less the idea that I want to inspire. Like, you don't need to work in a big company and you don't need to have personal projects, but I recommend you to at least once in your life try to reach those goals in both sides, because you're gonna feel an increment in your ideas, in your creativity, in your tools, in your development in general. So yeah, I work in MPC, DNEG, ILM, and my pilots are Sumer, Decito Yuna, and now Crit, which is a prototype, a video game prototype, and all is connected somehow. Finally, in the top, in the bottom right, you can see the logo of Mayhem Mirror, which is the company I founded 1 year ago, and this just offered me the opportunity of merging, let's say, professional work and my own ideas. Obviously, that's like can't be happier than this. It's like amazing to be able to do this. So yeah, that's a little bit of an advice. Try to do both. Try to have your projects. Try to reach big companies as well, because you're gonna learn a lot. So a little bit of the background and why I landed into real-time, or this real-time revolution. Back in the days, as I mentioned, I was doing this pilot Sumer in 2014 with offline render engines, and Decito Yuna that was released in 2020 also made with offline render engines while working in VFX. However, when I was at ILM, we had an interesting festival at ILM London, and Ruben, a friend of mine, told me, "Hey, have you thought about doing Decito Yuna in Unreal Engine?" I remember this conversation in the gym in the break, like, "What are you saying, man? The production is 80% done." I mean, I don't know. So what we did is like, it was like, don't mess with the project. Let's try to finish and then we decide. But he just, I'm gonna be always thankful, because he just inspired me to try something. And what we did is to branch out the project a bit, and we did a trailer with shots in Unreal Engine, and that was the first seed. Actually, yeah, that's a kind of word game there. The Decito Yuna seed was actually this kind of real-time experiment we did for the festival, and we won the festival in the experimental category, because it was not the surfing, it was an experiment. Indeed, with real time, when we added crowds, there was no metahuman, there was no ray trace. We were like in no man's land, like bastardizing everything, putting alembics, like doesn't matter, 20 gigabytes, who cares? Let's put everything in the engine. I was just bringing bad habits somehow of VFX into a game engine with the GPU exploding, basically. The final choice, obviously, for the pilot was not using the engine, but this flattened the bumps for the future, the breaking point, that when we felt that we are ready to move there. And for that, we did the Decito Yuna trailer that you can watch on YouTube, which is fully done in Unreal Engine 4. And that was like the moment where we felt like we can scale up this in all the areas, including virtual production and including game development. And hopefully in Unreal Engine 5, due to the quality of the pixels we can see on the screen, I believe that we can change how we tell stories in the game and how we develop games as well. So, I'm gonna just to put you in context of why this was a hard landing to me to Unreal Engine. I used Unreal Engine back in the days, but obviously never thought about virtual production. You can see the trailer with sound and all the stuff. I just want to mention that most of the things you can see here are alembics everywhere, alembics in every single thing. The cloth is vellum. I think this video is gonna be super slow. The because obviously I'm uploading things. But anyway, you can watch the trailer, and what I wanted to refer is like all these eggs, all these simulations is all Alembic. It's very heavy. We did a trailer because at the end of the day we just wanted to do the trailer, but it was a little bit hard because again we just came from the VFX industry. We had this kind of let's say again habit of not taking care too much about what happens under the hood as an artist. We think that there is magical people in the other part of the world doing the renders when we send something to the farm. So we don't care about optimizing. We don't care about alembics. We don't care about simulating, like, in Avengers, like a massive earthquake with a lot of rocks and particles. We don't care. And it is completely true because we don't see it. If you don't see something, it's the reality. We don't care too much as a human beings. So it's sad, but it's happening in VFX. Like, we just send whatever to the farm and next day we wait to see what happens. Now we landed to Unreal Engine and it was like, okay, I think this is not going to be in the same way because now you are dealing with a GPU, which is good and bad at the same time. So we need to re-educate ourselves into understanding how a GPU budget works in order to don't collapse everything with Alembics. And yes, it's beautiful to have Alembic workflows, but the plot twist, you can do this way better with other techniques, like, for example, texture animation, vertex texture animation with world position offset, or having high-res FBX, or just creating beautiful shaders. On the shader level, you're going to win in the very end. This is a mention about this kind of techniques we use in the experimental short film. This was made by Ruben Diaz. This actually was a world position offset that now everyone is seeing in Houdini side effects sessions. But this was even before we saw Game Labs from Houdini. And it was Ruben experimenting with the non-commercial edition back in the days. No worries, they know. Houdini knows, side effects knows. We were like trying to do things. And he was just bringing our motion capture that we recorded at ILM into crowds using vertex animation. What you see in the background is actually what is moving the character, just a 2D texture that later you can use in the game engines in the shader level with a world position offset. We got one texture for the animation, another texture for the world position, another texture for the locomotion, another texture for the orientation, if I'm not wrong. Maybe Ruben after the stream is going to correct me, but I try to do my best. So yeah, this was a some of the experiments we did. A lot of behind the scenes. I'm not going to go one by one. You can just check on YouTube some of them. Just some mentions, like, again, as you can see here, the amount of effects we added, it was completely crazy. I think it was like 5 gigabytes of Alembics. This one on the top left, it was a FBX with a skeletal mesh. All the rigid bodies you can see here, it was a 2000 skeletal mesh. A 2000 bones skeletal mesh. Again, Fabian Nowak, which is a amazing effects artist in the industry. I told him the same, hey, I want to do effects in Unreal. How you feel about it? How he felt about it is like, because he's not used to GPU, he sent me like massive Alembic files. So we needed to cool this in the camera. It's very slow, but you can see this on YouTube as well. We need to cool the Alembics just to don't show. Whatever is not show, we just optimize that and delete it. Obviously, the vertex count changed per frame, but it worked out really well in the final shot. So yeah, we were happy. Again, we just brute force Unreal to the maximum level. But this was needed because this is what helps later to understand what is scalable or not in a project. You need to go to the limit first to understand later, to make better choices later. Don't wait to the middle of the production to experiment with Alembic, because maybe you have surprises and you can find better workflows and pipelines. So yeah, and also just a shout out to the animators that even in the trailer, everything looks like motion capture. They did actually an amazing job in keyframe animation, recording themselves, finding takes that, it's a lot of work that is an invisible work. And I think they deserve more recognition, because even if they are actors behind the screen, they are way better sometimes than many of the actors you can see in any average Netflix show, just to mention something. So let's go forward. This is a comparison. When I did the trailer of the Sito Yuna in Unreal Engine, and I compare with the pilot that was offline render, actually, I liked more the picture in the bottom. And to me, this was like the realization, the moment where I felt like I don't want to look back. Of course, sometimes you have to look back because it's not like it's not like a cut, it's a transition. It goes little by little, you know, the technology moves forward. So, but to me, it was very clear that the future is actually in a game engine, and Unreal Engine 5, it looks like the perfect place to start with this idea. So also another spark, another situation I found a lot, it was many people told me when I released the pilot, like, hey, you should do a video game of this film. And I also heard many times the idea and the concept of a video game should be a movie as well. So I thought, okay, why not we do both? And yeah, many people can say, well, you have Detroit Become Human, you have Telltale Games, you have many games that they are movies already, or more like interactive movies or tell your own story video games. But I have the conviction that we can move even forward in terms of bringing the idea of cinematography, lighting, animation into a video game to the maximum level, to how we work in VFX, but in a video game. This means that having a specific art direction for the characters, a specific lighting direction for the characters, something that you don't see a lot in video games is lighting direction in your shots, because most of the cases they are just a character blueprint that they land in a specific cinematic, and the lighting, because maybe you have like dynamic weather or any other situation where the lighting changes, you don't care too much about that. So yeah, that's one of the things I wanted just to play around. And yeah, just let me show you a little bit of the nature of the project, like bringing games to a film format and bring film lovers to a game format. Tande, do you want to play or do you want to watch to? Do you want to experience? And the solution is a cooperative story-driven game. Let me jump straight to the engine. I'm going to show you what I mean. Actually, let me play with
not our moment. You want to kill yourself? Go.
I'm not gonna play a lot, but I want to show you this idea.
Yeah, you can call me now. I know you were waiting for this moment. Enjoy. At least I'm able to see our own limits. God damn it! Fine. Let's go.
And then you start into the combat. Okay. Now, let's imagine for a second that we enter from other part of the world. Here is a volume. This volume just triggers the cinematic. I enter from this area here, okay? Let's imagine that I enter around here. Well, it's gonna start from the beginning. Oh no, cool. I enter from here, let's say around here. The cinematic starts again dynamically in a new position, and the cameras match this orientation. But not just that, the lighting that, for example, helps to have a specular in the eyes, the ring light sometimes appears there in the back, is dynamic. It happens in the position relative to where the cinematic starts. And now I'm gonna start. AI is gonna be spawned.
At least I'm able to see our own limits. God damn it!
And the AI is gonna be there waiting for me. Okay? So last test, this is going to be more interesting. The last test is, okay, I want to have full control of cinematography, but let's say that I'm using another character, like Chris. Sorry, I don't have the face yet. We are working on that, but I think it's going to make the trick. Let's try. Same lighting relative to the position of the character.
DNA is not ready. Do you honestly believe we have a single chance in hell against that? You can go on your own. Yeah, I know pretty well what you're after. You won't go far with that insatiable hunger for power. This attitude is gonna get both of us killed.
And we are ready for combat. But sadly, I don't have weapons, so I'm not gonna fight. I know that stupid. I didn't buy the weapons. I don't fight without weapons. I'm smarter than the cinematic. So let's deep dive. Let me see in the presentation if I want to mention something specific. So yeah, let me just put some technical aspects first. Embracing Unreal Engine 5, we are using whatever is on the table. We are lucky to be in the prototype stage, so we can experiment with everything. And we are using game ability system that help for multiplayer, replication, and predictions. Basically also to help system communication, like the DNA system with the energy system, with the ability system is all connected thanks to GAS, game ability system. I recommend you to have a look. I think it's a very powerful tool if you are doing an RPG or a multiplayer game. Technology that is around is Xsense, FaceGood, Houdini kind effects for the retargeting. For animating with keyframe animation, we use Blender and AutoRig Pro for our keyframe. And we are also using procedural level generation thanks to J.L. Borney that he prototyped a very beautiful level generation C++ class that works very nicely on Steam. And yeah, we use Houdini for the blockout of the scenes because BSP are great, but we have a very organic environment, so we need like procedural pieces, and that's how we work with that. Back to the cinematic, I'm going to jump a lot back and forth because, again, the content is a little bit extensive and extended. So let's see what is in the cinematic, actually. Let's open this one. Okay, I'm going to go to the camera. And as you can see, I'm in 000. I'm in the origin of the world. So what we see here is the cinematic animated at the beginning, in the origin, not taking care too much about anything at all more than the animation, the camera, lighting, okay? And the most important thing, the transition from gameplay to cinematics. By the way, Amanda, I'm happy to jump into any questions because I'm going to jump to topics back and forth, so maybe I don't remember what I was doing before. So if you have questions, feel free to jump on the fly, okay?
Sure, yeah. Some of the initial questions they were asking about a little bit was, you mentioned that you had heavily used Alembics in the first iteration, but do you feel like that was the way to go for Seed of Juna, or do you recommend teams actually leveraging some other techniques? And if so, what would they be?
It's like a specific, there is no universal solution on this. It's more like a specific cases depending on your GPU budget. If you are going to have a shot which is just FX simulation centric, you can use Alembics. But if you are going to have that effects with 20 characters and particles that also are in Unreal Engine and animation and deformation, at some point the GPU is going to suffer. So maybe you can find another techniques if it's for effects. Like, again, I think Houdini, they are like showcasing a lot of beautiful techniques with vertex animation using world position offset. So it is the answer, just to don't be vague, depends on the shot, and you need, in VFX, we do this all the time. We just go through all the shots and we decide, okay, this is going to be done in this way, this is going to be done in this way. There is no easy way of predicting until you experience the shot, and then you need to be flexible in your choices. I'm using Alembic in this game prototype. Not now, but I can imagine situations where, for example, if it's not gameplay related, something a kind of environmental cinematic with some deformation that they are crazy, and I want to have directed deformations and not, let's say, GPU deformation like Chaos, which is great, but again, you want maybe to go to Houdini to have a more precise animation. You can export an Alembic and bring that into Unreal Engine. But again, it's by specific cases. Right now, I don't need them. In a full production feature film, I might, some specific shots, if you want them to look beautiful, maybe you need to use Alembics. So yeah, it depends. No simple answer.
Never is.
So yeah, feel free. Yeah, no, it's like there is no single solution for any problem in the world. There are like different solutions, and there is no, a lot of gray areas there to have your better outcome. My little advice is creative solutions are, most of the cases, more powerful than technical tools. Just change the camera angle, just try to change the lens, try to change You know, I have a slide. You know what? I'm gonna jump into the slide because I have a slide that summarizes that perfectly. So I'm gonna do a travel to the future. I'm gonna show you this little slide, which is this happened in 1993. You know, there was no global illumination, there was no full body IK, there was no nothing that we can just metahuman. So the thing is, Steven Spielberg was smart enough to say, let's put a point light, let's make it rain, and specularity is going to bring the volumes to be I don't know how to say this word, to make it believable. Okay. So that's what matters. It's like, rather than thinking, should I bring this in a massive alembic or FBX high res, think first in blocking out your shot. Maybe you don't need to go that farther. Maybe you can find an artistic creative solutions that is going to save your day. So yeah, that's a little bit of a note there about solutions and alembics. So what else is going on here? Okay, let's say we got the camera cuts, and the most important thing is the transition from the gameplay to the cinematic. In the documentation, you can find many techniques, but I really love the idea of creating an alpha with a weight, basically, that change from gameplay to cinematic. So as you can see here, what I'm doing inside this animation in the skeleton is moving this value to 0, from 0 to 1, okay? One important thing is make sure that the root motion starts here and then the transition happens there. And when it comes back to the origin, animating this value from 1 to 0 again and gameplay. Okay, that's how you can move from gameplay to cinematics. You can use slots in the animation blueprint. That's another technique. But in my case, to be honest, I prefer to have the control with this curve, because later, if I want, I can go here. And if I really need to change how this transition is done, I can start tweaking these values and making this smoother. I have full control in the sequencer. So I don't want to lose the opportunity of doing lerps in animation blueprints. I prefer, rather than to have the animation curves in the sequencer, and decide how I transition from gameplay to the sequencer, and from the sequencer to the gameplay. But not just that, I do that with every single element in the cinematic, from the lighting that you can see here, some keys. For example, this light starts with a value that is in the scene, and then changes to 0.3 to dim the entire light. You can see there how the light is moving down. And then when I go back, I put it here. So I prefer to have the control here. Yes, you can use a view target, you can use other transitions in blueprints, but don't underestimate the power of being in sequencer to control the cinematography, to control your animations, to control the storytelling, to the level that, for example, Lumen or Nanite is offering you, deciding how to block out your shot more from a cinematographic perspective and less from a game cinematic perspective, let's say, in a way, if that is a thing or not. So I do the same with every single actor. But another important thing, and that's why the cinematic works in every single angle, I use binds. So this is as simple as taking this light and going to track, attach, and then I bind this to the hero character, for example, here. This means that every single thing I'm doing in the cinematic is relative to the position of the character. So I don't care. In fact, I'm going to just showcase in a crazier way. Let's fly. I'm going to start playing the other way around, from here to this direction. The key light I have in the sides, the cameras, everything is relative to that position. So if I go back to the cinematic, you are going to see, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go outside. You're going to see that this light is bind. If I do this, you see that the light is there. Obviously, the change is not too much because I animated everything in 0.0, but it's already taking the rotation in mind. So what I do is like, okay, I want a specific art-directed lighting, a specific camera-directed lighting be completely relative to the position of the player. So I can have now like beautiful lighting from the camera. Like, to put you an example, I'm gonna put this. There is a specific light that brings the specularity in the eyes. And that's going to be this one. So I don't know if you can notice, because I don't know the quality of the stream, but there is a little specular in the eyes. This is the control you can have in a cinematic that, where you can just spawn lights, bind them to the specific location and rotation of the character. You can go crazy. I mean, you can, for example, now say, okay, I want this. This is not the light. Which one is the light? I think it's the point light here. So I'm going to create a new key. I'm going to go here. I'm going to change in this key light, the point light, wherever you are. Yeah, is this the guy? Okay. So I want like something more dramatic. I'm going to put this like here. I have the key for the intensity, but I can also animate the lights if I want. Just think about how you would do this in a real set. You don't see the lighters, the operators being static, waiting for the payroll. You see them moving all the time with the actors, with panels, with rim lights, with key lights. You can animate and you can do your cinematics with this mentality. So I'm not gonna go that to now, but imagine I want to do like something like godlike guy, like a front point light, something like that. I can do this softer, like this. I don't know, something like this. I'm gonna change this to, it's a bad guy. Has a very dark soul. You can see the red there in his soul. So now, having this control, and again, because I'm animating everything, I have this red light here working on him, and that's part of the new cinematic now. One thing to mention is, remember, if you want the cinematic to take control of changes in the world, be careful of how you have, when finished, if you want to restore how was the light before, or if you want to keep the new state with whatever you change, the lighting, the colors, you can keep the state or restore the state. In this case, doesn't matter because it's a spawned light, so it's going to disappear no matter what. But I have other examples, like for example, the skylight I'm changing, the directional light I'm changing, which again, even if I'm animating this back to normal, to the original light, it is kind of safe to go here, properties, and go here to restore state, just in case you break something in the level, because you are taking now, just to mention, the big difference between possessable and spawnable workflows is like possessable, you take whatever is in the current level and you start animating that. Spawnables are actors that are spawned in the cinematic, and after the cinematic, they just are destroyed unless you say otherwise explicitly. So just keep that in mind. If you are taking something from the level, like this light, just restore the state unless you want to use cinematics to change the world somehow, and it's very useful as well. So now we got that change there. I think that's more or less in terms of what is going on. Another little tip in events, you can just fire things. There are two events here. They are very specific and they are better. They work better in blueprints. The first one is me firing the music. The reason I fire the music with an event and not in the sequencer is because I want to take care of the music later. So I have this music here, which is just firing the chain in the sound score that you can hear in the cinematic, and that happens in the sequencer. The second event is this one, and this one needs to be an event because it's spawning the AI on server. Because by the way, this is a multiplayer game, so we need to take care of custom events, sending the, I'm doing here a little bit of where is the character placed. This is also relative. Depending on where is the character, the AI is spawned to that location. So, you're going to have always enemies, no matter what. If you come from the south to the from the north or from the east, it's going to be spawned in front of you or more or less in your back. And this is because we have procedural levels. We needed to find a solution to have procedural generation of AI inside the cinematic. So we fire the AI, and that's why they are waiting for me, because they are not the guys that they want to kill me in the middle of my cinematic. It's very fun because if I do this here, I'm gonna see AI invading my cinematic and they are gonna kill me in the cinematic, no matter what. So that's why it's more or less time to have this here, just to give me a little bit of time to recover, and then I can fight. So that's a bit of a mention of that. So I'm going to jump into the trigger volume of the cinematic. If you have any extra questions about this sequencer thing, because I'm going to close the sequencer and I'm going to move forward to the volume that triggered the cinematic. So any questions, or you want me to move forward?
So I mean, this is kind of overall, but Angelito F was asking if you're transitioning for a cutscene like this, would you work in the same cinematic or would you start in a different scene or somewhere else completely?
I'm using the same cinematic for every single situation, and I'm trying to be. That's what I'm working right now. I'm trying to have procedural cinematics and that's what I'm gonna show in the volume. It's perfect because I'm gonna jump into that, where I just take
Perfect.
references of whatever I need and I put them into the cinematic. So my cinematic is more like a kind of a static cut. It's more like a dynamic cut. So let's jump into that. I don't know if that's exactly the question, but maybe now with this, it's gonna make more sense.
Sure.
So I got here let me just, because I find the things better visually than in the outliner. There we go. So let's see what we got here. I clean the blueprints just for you guys because I'm messy. When I do live streams, no one understands what I'm doing. Now finally I can understand even myself. So thank
They
you,
look
Epic,
lovely.
to offer me this opportunity to clean my blueprints. Yeah, I'm very chaotic, but yeah. So basically, I'm gonna go through. Basically, when we overlap the volume you see there, we do a do once just to prevent other stuff. I noticed. Basically, here is gonna fade out the scary sound that you can hear in the beginning, which is this begin play first music made by the beautiful. The nickname is Other. It's a beautiful musician. He is doing the music for the game. So basically, we start with this music, and then we say the reference, and we play the music. And later, I fade out this music, and I start the cinematic. As you can see, I'm not very used even to do comments, because I didn't know that you can do this in this part. Okay, cool. So that's my situation of how chaotic I am, that I don't know even organization tools. So we fade out, and then you have many ways of doing this. I'm going for the quickest and simple to show the case, and just calling the pawn and the hero character, which contains this character is the parent class of all the potential characters in the game. So I'm still here very agnostic of any situation. It could be Demian, which is the guy, or it could be Chris, which is the girl. So we don't know yet. We say the reference also of the hat, because I want to have a very, a smooth fade out to the cinematic. And then we get the player controller that we are going to use to say to the player, hey, stop moving. You can see this here. I would enter into this, but it's a little bit more like math thing to lerp to, if you are looking up, lerp to 0. If you are looking down, lerp to 259.9, etc., to avoid a flip in the camera. And I want to credit here our programmer JL Borne, which again brought me from the maths of Unreal and math, and he always inspired me to push math. And yeah, sadly, at some point, math are going to come back from your school days to the reality of Unreal Engine. And it's pretty fun once you understand what you are doing. Basically, under the hood, again, as you can see here, this means if you are looking down with the camera, I'm going to just reproduce this so it's easier. I need to be agnostic to the jaw. So the jaw defines what is the anchor rotation of the cinematic, but I need to force the camera to look straight, okay? So if I'm looking down like this, and I just press forward, the game is going to do this. Boom, okay? If I look up like this, the game is going to do this. And the camera is going to match perfectly with the cinematic. So there was a little bit of a problem there, because obviously when you have a value of 200, let's say 355, and you are lerping to 0, you know what is going to happen. The camera is going to do a beautiful 360 degrees, and the people is going to feel dizzy, and it's strange, and it's bizarre, and it's not cool. So we need to split if you are looking up and down, and then lerp to 0. You can see here the magic. 001 and 359. Is it the cleanest solution? Maybe not. Does it work? Oh yeah, it works. So that's what matters. It's working. So cinematic volume. Let's go outside the macro. Disable the input. We got here. We use the values we define in the macro. We do the lerp with a timeline. We set the control rotation. Yeah, this is what we are doing. We are lerping in this update with a linear curve, because basically we do linear curves because this is already a easy in out, so you don't need to, if you are doing the easy in out with interpolation, don't add an interpolation here because it's going to do double interpolation and it's going to feel really strange. Just do a linear timeline and then use the magic of the easy in out node in the float. So we lerp everything. We lerp the rotation and we lerp the hood opacity to 0, and then we do a do once. The reason I do a do once here and not in the finished is because as in the moment I just hit the volume, I just jump straight to the cinematic. I just want to start. I don't want, the idea of this presentation is to blend virtual production and games. I don't want to feel any, there we go, a cinematic starts. I want just to feel the things already there happening. I don't want to wait. Here is something quite interesting. Depending of my character, this is calling from the child class, has the tag Demian or not, which is going to be Chris, it's going to fire a second sequence. And I'm not going to open this because sometimes it crashes because I think I have some problems in the code. So, but just to let you know, I'm firing different subsequences here. One with the audio of Demian and one with the audio of Chris. Okay, this is a little bit of a note why the sound sounds different. It's not inside the sequence you can see there. The main sequence is another sequence that is synchronized and fires at the same time. I ask the actors, I'm going to show you now how is the workflow to do this for me, and they are just matching my bad voiceover with their amazing talent, and that's why you can hear the sound matching with both characters using the same motion capture in both of them, in the body motion capture at least. And then we fire the main sequence, and this is where the magic happens. Basically, having this sequence, we don't need this, we don't need this. Having this sequence here, what I'm doing is I create the sequence is not in the level, and then I send all the references. In this case, I only need the BP hero character, which is going to be either Chris or Demian, because the reference is going to save is not going to be the parent class, it's going to be the child class, depending on if I'm playing one player, one character, or the other. And that is going to be sent to Demian, which you notice that it's spawnable here. And it's a funny situation. It's like most of the cases you have either spawnable or possessable. But in this case, if I go to the sequence again, most of the situations when it's a very unique, it's a rare case because all these lights appear in the cinematic and then disappears. But Demian appears and stays. And the only way to make him stay is to spawn this character. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm trying to explain here. When you spawn something in the cinematic, disappears when the cinematic ends. When you possess something in the cinematic, it stays because it's something that you are possessing and you are going to control, and then you are going to leave them in the level. Demian already exists when I'm playing. However, I need to do a possessable because I need to send a reference in the blueprint of the player. But when it finishes, that reference stays. It's a little bit convoluted, but once you start doing this, you're going to notice it makes sense. I would love to find a better way of explaining this without, like messing with words. But yeah, it's convoluted. It's a very unique case. So basically here in the blueprint, I'm taking the sequencer, I create the sequence, and now I set the binds. And the bind is this spawnable Demian, which now, surprise, surprise, is not going to be the spawnable Demian. It's going to be the existing player, the character, okay? Which is going to be this new bind. And now I play the cinematic that I mentioned before. And finally, I have an event that fires when it's finished. And what happens when it's finished is basically I enable. You remember to do this. It's not cool to be in a cinematic and not being able to kill the enemies. It's not funny. So enable the input. Then this is a kind of sanity check. I don't need to do this because I'm animating everything. But if you are paranoid because maybe you animated something with the depth of field or you changed something in the camera, you can always go back to normal using a set view target with blend and just going to the camera that has the blueprint hero character. And then basically I do another opacity, go back to the UI. Remember, put the UI back. Yes, the cinematics have a feature to basically hide and unhide the HUD. But again, having the control of the sequencer is very powerful. So that's why I like to have the control all inside here. A little bit of inside Unreal. Let's see how the things work on behind the scenes. So yeah, facial animation, we are using FaceGood. You can see here my beautiful, nah, I'm kidding. It's very ugly. When you put these cameras, is the worst of the worst. It is. You can't avoid. You can be a top model. You're gonna suffer a lot seeing this. Sorry, that's the reality. You want to do VFX, you're gonna be in very awkward situations all the time. So the beauty of FaceGood is like we can train our own models. So I just train with AI our own models. So the more iterations we do, the more videos I have, the better the solver works. And right now I'm finding a good way of taking specific details. I'm lucky or unlucky of having these wrinkles here that helps me also to trigger specific moments in my expressions. So depending on how is your face, you need to train your own model because you will find features in your face that they are very helpful. Let's imagine that you have, what is the name in English? Like a black spot
The
in your
blackheads
face.
or
Yeah.
moles,
So
freckles,
use it.
all the things.
Exactly. Well, freckle. If you have freckles, you are gonna be loved by any facial capture editor because you can just track all your points in your face. So I'm just trying to find my points of interest, if that is a thing, into my face. To you see, I had this very like a lot of volume here, so I'm using that as well. Just some tips to do this. I could use. This is not needs to be something that is stays all the time, nothing that appears and disappears. This is not a good idea. But anything that is part of your face and stays in your face is always good to track. I'm tracking the width of the pupil as well a bit, and it works pretty well. So that's how we did the facial capture. Now, the body capture. Xsense. So for this, I'm gonna drink water because I'm talking a lot. So questions are welcome because it makes me think and makes me shut up a bit, and that's cool as well.
Yeah, sure. We have a couple things I think still related to some of the other stuff you're doing. So, let's see. So Angelito F again was asking, could you create a node in the event graph that only triggers if or above a specific level? So say you return to that area, it won't trigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that would be triggering a secondary cinematic inside the cinematic, correct? Yeah, you can go procedural / fractal. You can have, I don't know if you notice in the gameplay, this is not if you are in a level or not, but in the gameplay, there are two cinematics happening. This guy is not a montage. This guy is a cinematic. It's an ambient cinematic. So let me just show you what is the cinematic actually. Ambient cinematic. So it's this big guy basically. Okay, so this big guy moving is a cinematic. I can trigger this cinematic inside the other cinematic with this. Basically, I can just go here. I can just go like create level sequence player, put the sequence I need and trigger all that inside the other cinematic. You can go crazy. You can branch out. You can go wild. That's what I'm trying to inspire people, like bringing like this kind of ideas into a new level of telling stories. And yes, 100% you can do whatever in Blueprints, and that's why you have the level sequence director to direct what you want to do inside the cinematics. And you can manage like incredible things inside. You can just change the level, the lighting, the weather, spawning AI, sending the characters to a new level. You can do whatever you want. You are inside Blueprints, you have the entire control. As long as you have the references, or you call the references nicely, you should be able to do whatever you want. So yeah, 100%.
Right, and you could set up conditions, right? Like if it's already run or you don't want it to run under certain conditions, you can make sure to build that all in as well.
Yeah. Also, as an extra mention, you can also bind events in the sequence you are playing. If you want to do that outside, you have like bind when it's a camera cut, when finish, when pause, when play reverse. I mean, you have a lot of binds you can experiment. But obviously, having the control of triggering the event from the sequencer gives you the exact amount or exact time where you want to trigger something or trigger another cinematic or exactly condition if you are in this part of the world, what is your position in the world, what are the weapons you have. Maybe you don't have a weapon, you don't trigger the cinematic, but you trigger a secondary cinematic where the guy does something different because has a weapon. You can go very, very wide
Right.
with that. I don't recommend it because it's chaotic, but it's cool. You can do it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Let's see. So Gizmo Cinematics was wondering, how do you prevent cinematic specific actors like cameras, lights, etc., from colliding with environmental actors like stones or walls that may be close to a character?
That's a really good question. The first thing is putting the volumes in an area that you know is not going to collide. That's again, like, I don't know if it's in English as well. The Occam knife is an expression. Occam knife. The easiest answer is the most. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm trying
most
to
simple,
translate
yeah.
from Spanish. Yeah, the
The
easiest
best
solution
answer
is
is
the
the
best one.
simplest, or yeah.
Exactly.
Says
So
Occam's
exactly
razor.
that.
Yeah.
Try to avoid to put the volumes in the angles where there is a collision. Of course, you can write something smart and playing with a dynamic camera a lot, but if you want to have a cinematic control of your composition of the shot, what you can do maybe is line trace with a bigger volume of a capsule or from the camera, and every single time the camera is close to a static mesh, just make that mesh invisible if you want to do that. But again, because that mesh is going to be invisible, it's going to change the lighting, it's going to create the best thing is trying to avoid that. But indeed, the thing I would do it, I think I would just line trace or capsule trace like 2 meters from the camera. And if the camera is just traveling, start to destroy whatever is taking the camera, as long as it's a static mesh, or you have a tag like destroyable static mesh, and you put the tag branching has this static mesh, the tag destroyable static mesh, yes, then destroy, make it invisible, and then put back to the original state, for example. We go?
Perfect. All right.
More?
We'll hold them. Keep going.
Okay, let's do it. So Xsense. Xsense is the tool we are using for motion capture. And I got here, this is myself in the living room. Again, something that I couldn't imagine years ago. Now I'm able to do motion capture here. So it's crazy to me. So this is me. Just, I think they are like reactions. I'm glad that I put the curtains down, because if someone sees what I'm doing in the living room, they would be crazy. But yeah, this is me. This is me like doing reactions of stuff. So basically what we do is, okay, let's take this reaction, something interesting maybe. Let me just, there's someone in the back like this one. Let me see. This one. Okay, so we start from here and then we go there. This is basically this. I recorded this when an enemy is shot from the back, scare you, and then boom, I'm gonna kill you. You know, the classic thing. Don't mess with me. So we select this, and we are gonna go to File, Export Selection, Scary, and then we export. That's it. Now what I do, I go to let me find Houdini KineFX. The beauty of Houdini KineFX is like we have entire control of the different characters. We use a universal skeleton for all of them. So this is an animation I got already here. It's not the same one, but just to show you, I can just jump to the ancestor before here. And now magically, I'm going to have this animation in other character. And now I can correct the shoulders if needed. I can do whatever, but it's already working as it comes. So let me go to Demian, for example. Yeah, there we go. So we got Demian. And that's it. Basically, what I do here is importing the new animation, which is scary frames. And now, boom, that's it. We got animation already retargeted. Magic. Okay, so what is happening under the hood, or more, let's say, in Nodes? It is different processes, not very complicated, but important to mention. If you are using gameplay animations that they are not cinematic, you need to extract the root motion or the locomotion and put that as a root motion. So if you see here, Xsense comes with the root in 000. I think they're going to change that. I would love to see that changing, please. Because in previous versions, you can export the root motion from the heap. But right now, you can't. But it's okay. You can do this in other softwares. That's not a problem. So basically, what you see here is that if you want to use this for gameplay, what is going to happen is that the animation is going to play, but once the animation finishes, the animation, the character is gonna go back to the original position, to the capsule position. Okay, so to prevent that, what we do is to extract the locomotion. So you can see here now that red thing there is the locomotion, and as you can see, it's moving where the hip was moving before, and now the character is static. So now we got this locomotion helper that is going to disappear, because what we are going to do in the next node is to apply this transform into the root. So now the root follows me. Boom, that's fixed already. So the difference, again, to illustrate, is moving from here, where the root stays there all the time, to here, where the root follows only the Z and X axis. So what I'm doing here is, you can see, I'm using the channel of the previous node, the extra locomotion transform, which is this information you can see here, that for some reason is not updating. Oh, because I need to be in this one, right? Oh, interesting. Okay, so you will need to believe me. In this case, the locomotion is moving, okay? So I'm moving from here to the root applied there, okay? So now the next step is to rig match pose. I'm gonna go from the character. I got the character here. Forget this, it's a pre-transfer, it's not relevant, to be honest. The next thing is using the read match pose. I'm having a target skeleton, which is my character, in this case Demian, and my source skeleton, which is the Xsense animation with the root motion already applied. So all good, nice. I can do the root motion later, but I don't know, I just prefer to do that in the source skeleton. So now we use the read match pose, which basically, if you start from scratch, let me show you this one, you will see something like this. Okay, where we have the T pose in the Xsense, and we got the A pose in from our skeleton. So very simple. One recommendation here, rather than using the target skeleton, I recommend you to use always the source skeleton, because if you use the target skeleton, you're gonna find that this is the scale of your character, and this is gonna be your new scale. And then when you are go to the game, you are gonna find that your guy or your girl is gonna be now smaller, and that's not cool. So the best thing you can do is don't apply the transfer to the target skeleton, apply the transfer to the source skeleton. So now what it's doing is taking the source skeleton of Xsense and scaling that up to match the hip and the shoulders. So yeah, later would be a task of, you know, matching the position and putting all more or less like this. So the full body IK is going to work nicely the closer you are to the final skeleton, okay, etc., etc. So going here, I got this more or less match. Again, as you can see, I didn't care too much. I can go better, but it's working out really nice, because next step is going to be just to bind the points. And again, this is another manual thing to do, but not very hard. I'm going to put another point. What is the name? So you will see something like this. And now it's very simple. You just need to do this, okay? Connect all the points. To have everything wired, which, as you can imagine, I'm not gonna do now, but you have the idea, okay? So that's what you can see here, all beautifully connected. Experiment with this, experiment, because again, this is not like you are gonna go through a solver, so you are somehow puppeting your character with source information, so you can just decide how much. Like you can do the same retargeting, removing all the spine and taking only the top of the spine and the hip. Okay, so this is a solver. Don't forget that. So now we are in the solver and we got this already working. And here in the solver, you can play around with different weights. You can play around with the weights of the feet, as you can see there, to match. You can play with the hip, how much weight. Remember, when you use a solver, means that there is no a single solution. You use a solver because you are solving things that they have different outcomes depending on different inputs. So I remember in one company, maybe it's disclaimer, but I'm not gonna say the name. In one of the tools, they said like retargeting is not a science, it's an art. I think it's both, but it's quite artistic. It's like there is no a single outcome because if I'm smaller than the motion capture guy, my character is smaller and needs to hit a wall with the arms. In order me to reach the wall, it could be either that I put my clavicles, maybe I put my spine, maybe I put my hip. So there are many solutions to interpret how this guy now is going to touch the wall. So you need to go sometimes a bit manual and making choices of, no, I want this to be more spine driven. I want this to be more hip driven. Depending on the character, the attitude of your character. If it's a bad guy, maybe it's always with the spine high. If it's a very scary guy, maybe you want to put the hip down with the source motion. Trying to capture the idea of the acting that the guy did in the shooting stage, and try to represent that and honor that with the retargeting. That's why it's an art. So the next step, once we got this little tip, because again, this is a solver, you will find that sometimes the root is going down, that the 000. So what I do here basically is saying, okay, let's override in world space the 0. So you can see here the root going up and down. So there we go. So I want the root to be flat. However, I want to keep the root motion from the full body IK. So I want just to have this value in Z and X as it is now. But I want the Y go back to 000 all the time. So that's why I use an override mode with world space, because I know that my root is going to be always 000, unless you want to do a jump with your character, you want to go to flying mode, and you want to use the root motion vertically to avoid, to dodge, to jump over obstacles. So that's where you can maybe animate this if you want, up and down, or you can use the hip relative distance to trigger that jump. You have to keep care a little bit of the root motion. If you are doing gameplay, keep in mind the orientation, keep in mind where you start, where you end, because that is what is going to define the gameplay. In fact, this 90 degrees here is my transfer to what is the forward vector in Unreal Engine versus of what is the forward vector in side effects. I want to do another disclaimer, please. Engineers of the world, agree in one axis universal system. That would be really helpful for, I know it's impossible, but we always need to take care of axis all the time. And Blender has its own axis, and Unreal its own axis, Houdini its own axis. My head is not smart enough to deal with that. So that's why I'm struggling with this sometimes. And then I do a transfer just to put, usually this transfer is just, I bring the character to 000, but you can do this smartly also with a little bit of a couple of expressions. But yeah, what I try to do here is to put the character in 000. Here is where I start animating. So when I start animating, I just go with a bounding form that just is fed by the character geometry here from the very beginning, and the motion at the very end. So if I see this, I can see my character already there. So now in a layer, fashion, I can start, for example, here are the fingers. So I can just start saying, yeah, I want this like more like, because it's having a weapon. So I can do this, I can animate this. I can say, yeah, okay, be like this. And then here start to, open the arms. I can correct the shoulders. Say this shoulder maybe should be bigger here. Let's change this here. You can change this also in the full body IK, because one of the beauties is because it's non-destructive. I can leave this in this kind of viewer like this with the geometry, and I can go now to the full body IK. And while I'm seeing the full body IK there, which is going to be complicated because it's separated, let's say that I take the spine here. If I can take the spine, here, the match pose, this one. So I'm going to take the spine, for example, and I can start doing these things. So as you can see, depending on how I'm defining what is the source pose and the target pose, and as you can see, it's not only the spine, the only thing is changing. It's changing the arms position. It's changing all the things in an organic way, okay? As you can see, the legs are moving a bit. So this is if you want to have a more global control of how your character looks. Rather than animating, you can tweak a bit the position of the arms. You see, the full body IK is working there. So very, very useful to, before going to animation, just start blocking a good feeling of your pose of your characters exactly in the rig match pose node. And that's pretty much it. When I'm happy with that, we go to the destructive workflow, which is the client is happy and he signed a contract saying he's very, very happy. At that moment, you can do final tweaks, baking everything. So you can use this node, you can bake everything. Once it's finished, because I'm super smart, I put 2,700 frames. That was not a very smart move, knowing that there is only 30 frames. But let me see if I'm baking or not. Yeah, I think I was. I'm gonna press escape. Yeah, of course. Let me put just 100, and let's repeat the operation. Oh, look, it baked. Okay, so it's baked. Yeah. So now we got this. I could go literally again here with the transform, and now let's say I'm gonna select. Let's say, let me just go to log points. I'm gonna select all the points, and if I want to have like moments of, let's say, like a faster moments, I can start playing around with these things, and animate here like layer animation. If you are doing attacks and you want, we do that in the game all the time. I can show you, for example, if I find grid characters, hero animation, it's gonna be combat. Nah, it's gonna be most likely custom. Poof, a lot of animation. I'm gonna put combo here. Welcome to my folder structure. Okay, let's say maybe it's this one. Yeah. Okay, so this is basically the animation change. Sorry for all the assets and skeletal meshes, but you can have an idea. As you can see, this is motion capture, but because the player needs time to decide if he wants to go with the combo or not, I just bake all the animation and then I do retimes to give that room there to do the next attack, to do the next attack, and to do the next attack. So basically when you play is what you can see actually. Close this. I think I'm messing with everything. I'm happy that I have perforce because I think I broke many things already. So yeah, if I go to the sword, you can see there's a bit of timing there, just to choose if I want to keep going or not with animation. And if I want to go, I can do this. So that's what matters. By the way, not all is motion capture, as you can see here. We got also keyframe animation. That's not me jumping. That's Assumpta and Jade Rosas animating this beautiful stuff. So yeah, but it's well, I hear the sound double. But yeah, it's interesting that you can do this in Houdini. And then the next step is just, okay, once you are happy, you just make this from here, and then you name this like a beautiful animation, whatever you want. Do this because if you are using the ROP FBX output, you need a name, and then you can name this like whatever, beautiful or test. And then we can change this to I don't know, 100, and then we just save, and everything is gonna be ready for Demian here. So I had my own folder for this demo, which is the chaotic folder where everything can work. Demian test, skeleton. We use a universal skeleton for the main characters. Demian meta. Meta is because we're based in the meta human skeleton. And then we can import. Yeah. And there we go. We got our beautiful animation there with root motion. I already exported 100 frames, but I hope you believe me, it's working. Okay. I need to adjust the root motion as I mentioned before. But because I want to show more things, I want to go fast, if you don't mind. But this is the workflow I do, and this is how I bring animation from Xsense to Houdini and Houdini to Unreal. I'm going to move to the slides, but it's a good moment to catch more questions.
So they just wanted to clarify. In Houdini, somebody
Yeah.
was asking if you're primarily using it for retargeting, but there's a bit more going on there, right?
It's more going on, yeah. Sorry for you can see my naming is the best in the world. Again, my philosophy is first prototype, then be organized. And it's not a good advice, but it's an advice that works. I think advices are important when it works for you. And there are no global advices. My advice is to prototype first, clean later. But other people is gonna tell you no, be organized from the beginning, because otherwise you are not gonna find your files. So maybe this one, for example. Yeah, we are using the procedural levels in Houdini. I can show you in other level. Yeah. So wow, I have a lot of stuff. But yeah, scary. Very, very scary. This is the part that we are using. We have an hexagonal level generation. So we do the pieces here in Houdini, and then we send that to Unreal. So let me just save this, and let me just jump to the procedural level if you are interested on that very quickly. I'm gonna go to. That's a good question. I would say, I think it's this guy. There is a big chance it is. Yeah, so this is like the level generation. So basically we create hexagons. This is also technology made by the programmer, Jelborn. And we rotate and we spawn different, this is a prototype, but all these pieces are made in Houdini. This is how we build the worlds. And every single time you play, and this is multiplayer as well, you will have a different variation of events. So now I don't have a mountain. The mountain is there. We only have 3 pieces right now, but we are working in that. Let me just don't show the collisions. And yeah, we got the guys that they are going to spawn there, and this is completely playable. So yeah, again, this is the not looking good level, but yeah, you can just go to the level and everything is ready for multiplayer. Oh wow, that's a big sun. So yeah, that's where we use Houdini as well, for procedural generation, for pieces, for quick prototyping, replacing the BSPs, and all that stuff. So
what's next?
Let's see what is next. It's a lot of stuff. In terms of how we let me go a little bit backwards. Why? Wow, yeah, it's a lot of stuff. How we are on time?
Keep going.
I want to know, just to have fun. Keep going, no? Okay, that's the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so the technical aspects, I mentioned that. So once we got all this technology, again, let's go to the past to see how we arrived there. Before I jump into purely game development or even storytelling in a pilot or prototype, I need to feel the world. Not just me. I need to present the world, because other artists are going to jump into the project, and the more art you have, the better is going to go everything later, the smoother the sailing. So it helps, it motivates, it raises the spirits of the project. So to me, art is very, very relevant, and it's something that I want always to protect and to defend, because it's what makes a game or a movie very special. You don't tell stories only writing, you tell stories in anything comes from you. This means music, this means environmental storytelling, this means weapons, this means UI. Just to put you an example, let me move forward. UI is quite related with the story. It's all related with DNA engineering, with CRISPR-9 technology. And here you can see the first moment I told to the programmer, like, hey, let's imagine a way where we just make the characters to change the body DNA to not play better necessarily, but play different, to be different. Then you start researching about DNA, how you can do a design that is connected with the story, not having like different pieces separated. When an artistic creation works is when you feel that all the different pieces are coming together in the same feeling, in the same ideology, in the same storytelling rules. If you have like one specific design in one direction and another specific design in another complete direction, in a subconscious way, you feel not connected and you don't feel very into the universe. You feel more like pieces disconnected. So that's the process I learned from the Sito Yuna. If I go here, and we wanted just to bring the idea of the white skin of the ancestors, how this is bringing this DNA is used for the humans to be like them, to fight like them, to be as strong as them, and just start working in the entire universe with this direction. So then, yeah, again, we got here art from Anastasia Strutinska, the character designer, and Caroline Bailey, the environmental designer, trying to connect one artist inspiring the other, one artist inspiring the other. This is a loop. Everyone wants to be connected with the world. So the more art you have, the better is going to be the art coming later. So this is a kind of loop, constant loop, constantly. And yeah, a lot of art. This is just the scratching the surface. And also in animation, you want to have a specific style. And for that, this is me just being dumb. Let me present. Yeah, it's going to be slow because they are like YouTube videos, I think. But yeah, we have animations here from Jay Rosas, from Asunta Campos. When sometimes motion capture is not enough, you need to go for a specific art-directed animation, keyframe. This has been a very old blocking of attacks, me doing the reference for the animators. So yeah, art is very, very relevant. It's not like secondary, to be honest. But what happened? Metahumans appear in the middle of our art direction. And it was like, oh my God, I want to use metahumans. And I was lucky enough, and I want to thank the Metahuman team that they let me to be part of the closed beta. It was amazing. Couple of weeks of experiments. I did a monologue there, like very raw. I was super impressed. This is the first test I did with no animation blueprint, magic, all raw. You can watch it on the internet. It's very bad. I feel ashamed now because now you can see a lot of metahumans animations out there that obviously the more time is for the public domain, the more beautiful pieces you can see more and more and more. But we found a situation, and the situation was like, we got art direction here, how far we can push metahumans to get what we want. So I created Demian in metahumans the closest I could to our strictly art design Demian from Anastasia Strutinska, and it's like, how can we do this? Like, I saw different ways, obviously using morph targets as a pre-morph target or post-morph target, but we wanted to use custom topology, custom poly count, custom geometry, custom UVs, and it was hard because I didn't find a solution. In the meantime, it's like, okay, let's start experimenting with, painting textures, playing around with that. I think everyone that has used metahumans the second day is trying to break it, and it's completely normal. Technology, the only way of progressing technology is breaking technology. We don't reinvent the wheel. We build different styles of wheels, but the wheel is a circle. Don't try to do a wheel with a triangle because you're going to have a surprise. So, and that was the idea. Okay, let me try to play around. I'm not going to reinvent MetaHuman. This is an amazing, beautiful piece of technology and art. Let me see what I can build on top. So I started to do experiments with ArtKit. This video is not going to run, but yeah, basically here I was doing like a kind of hybrid approach where I first did the motion capture in XSense, and secondly I did the ArtKit facial capturing in the phone, and then I put both things together into a stage. This is a workflow that even this was as an experiment I still using, and we use a lot when I was working at crowds at ILM. We don't shoot our crowds, as you can imagine, per shot, because that's silly, right? You are doing crowds, you don't shoot 2,000 people doing different things. You shoot specific looping clips or specific clips of actions, and then you paint your shot from the camera. You paint some guys fighting here, some guys running away there. You paint the shots. So that kind of mentality also influenced this kind of, filmmaking into how can I do this in an engine rather than, deciding everything on the stage. I can just have backup motion capture. So I record a lot of body capture. I record a lot of facial capture. And later I can just blend them together in case the acting is not good enough, or in case I want to change something in the last moment, or maybe I want to blend two kind of animations in sequencer later. So that's a kind of workflow I do. I do 2 stages, the body in one side, the face in other side, sometimes just to have a library of different motion. So let me just go down. This is, I already saw this, Houdini, KineFX, that's the other part. When MetaHuman arrived, I experimented a lot with KineFX, and yeah, that was the thing I could reach at that moment. Still the question mark all the time in my head, how can we custom the geometry to have our custom geometry using, I'm going to be clear, ripping off, stealing the beautiful brains of the people that did MetaHumans, because I don't want to create a rig from scratch. And one thing I want to mention, I really believe that the revolution of MetaHumans is not necessarily the technology. The technology, if you go to any VFX companies, you're going to see this kind of rigs everywhere. What is the real revolution is that now everyone can have that technology in their homes. That's mental. I mean, it's incredible. It's like, when I saw MetaHumans, it was like, yeah, I feel like home. When I was working on Jungle Book, I was dealing with rigs of crazy animals with a lot of stuff. And then when I went back home doing my project, it's like, okay, let's go back to the simple rigs. Like now everything is easy, simple, it's not complex anymore because you work in your own projects and you have your limits. Right now I have MetaHuman. It's like, dude, this is exactly what I did before. Now it's in my home. We can go wild. We can just go to the level. We can just 3-4 people now can do an amazing story or an amazing game in their rooms. It's crazy. So I think the revolution again is not about the technology. It's about the democratization of the technology. That's the real revolution. So Xsense, any kind of motion capture solution is also quite new. Back in the days was really hard. I used Kinect back in the days, Brekel back in the days. And yeah, Houdini KineFX became the main workflow. And then another thing appeared, FaceGood. This is a technology we started to use like 3 weeks ago. And to me, Dynamics YZ was acquired. And that created a situation like, damn, I wanted to do motion capture with Dynamics YZ. And I was waiting for a cool solution. And then, boom, FaceGood appeared. I contacted them and I said, hey, I want to do something here. And you are going to see here already the model of Demian. I'm doing a spoiler. We did the model, but this was the process of the art of Demian and finally using FaceGood. And the motion capture that you can see in this video is nice. I'm going to show you that later. But let's move forward. Then another company appeared, Raised by Monsters. And I want to just thank them 1,000 times because they saved my ass in the last moment. Because I didn't find a solution, I was going to give up into using MetaHumans, but I saw a video on LinkedIn. I saw how they transfer custom topology into the MetaHuman tech. And then they invented, I asked them for a name, very complex name. It doesn't sound as cool as Lumen or Nanite. It's 2D heat mapping UV skin transfer. If you are curious about what they are doing or you're interested on this, just contact them. I'm not going to be the guy answering your questions. What I know is that the technology is based in 2D transferring rather than 3D ray casting from one piece of geometry to the other. This provides that you can have any geometry, any topology, any vertex count, and transfer all the blend shapes, all the rig into your custom geometry. And it's like, dude, I need this. I really need this. And this is the workflow in a nutshell, that what we are doing. We started with the ZBrush sculpted body by Ivan Lopez. Then we rig this in AutoRig Pro plus voxel skinning in Blender, very cool technique to have good skin weights. And then in parallel, we got the head in ZBrush as well. And then we do this beautiful tech of 2D heat mapping UV skin transfer from MetaHumans. And in parallel, we got the base color and wrinkles that I'm going to show in a bit. And we hand paint that on top for the wrinkles as well. And all this meets in the animation blueprint plus some, basic sockets to put the head on top. Everyone is doing this right now, so I think it's not super interesting unless someone asks for that. But we are using sockets. We are using the position of the skeleton to put the head on its position. And in parallel, the animation, extends for the body, kind effects for the retargeting, that meets in a different animation blueprint that might change in the future, and we want to merge all in one animation blueprint. We'll see. And for facial capture, we got FaceGood, which is we are training our custom model for my face and for MetaHumans. And all these things together meet in the sequencer. And finally, for adjustments, reanimation, extra logic, we got Control Rig that we are still in the baby steps, but we start using that for bringing our shots a more, let's say, feature animation looking feel, no? So once you have this technology, you look back to the art. It's like, okay, we got all this. Let's look back and let's see what we can do. And this is like the texture. This is overdrawn from MetaHumans textures. So as you can see in the left, you can see the base color, and in the right, you can see the wrinkles drawn by the concept artist, following the exact lines that we got in the data in the material shader. If you go to the textures, if you go to the color, you will find 4 textures, and 3 of them are the trigger textures by different blend shapes. So you just need to go through 3 of them and start painting on top, trying to keep an artistic approach. I'm going to show you now how this works. So finally, we closed the circle. We were really, really happy to see how we were able to transfer MetaHumans into our concept art. The first time I saw Demian, it was like, yeah, we got this. This is beautiful. Because now I feel like, and I'm not talking about my work, I'm talking about how everyone made this beautiful. Being clear, if I had to do this alone, you would see, like the Jurassic Park song that when you turn the camera is very sad, this kind of meme you see there, it would be that.
Yeah.
So I found people around like, hey, let's do this. Hey, I need you. Hey, do the art. Hey, I need you to do this. And when you connect talent from every single part, you create something new. Again, you don't need to be original. You need to steal good. And this is Tarantino's quote. So if you don't like this, don't blame me. But I really believe that in order to be better creators, better directors, better TDs or better R&D guys, we need to somehow call it inspire, call it be, copy. We need to build on top of each other. We need to cooperate rather than to compete. And I think that's why I like this idea of collaborating with different companies, different artists, and bringing the best of them. So let me just show you what I mean here. Cinematic phase. So here I got another cinematic that presents how this works. This is FaceGood animation. And yeah, here you can see, in fact, I'm going to show this with lighting first. It's a bit erratic. It was the first test, but yeah, it was cool to see this. Some keyframes there that jumped. But the interesting part is this. Let me go to the buffers. So this is the color, and you can see the wrinkles there. Boom. This is hand painted. So you can go to the level of, having a lot of art direction also in your textures, not just the models itself. You can go wild. You can do whatever you want here. You can go and try to get a look like a Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse, where the wrinkles were generated by different expressions. You can just create your own universe and your own style, taking technology from one place, taking technology from other place, and putting all together. The technology is ready. We got Lumen to have beautiful lighting. We got Nanite to put whatever we want in the scene. We got MetaHumans to use their beautiful face rig. So, I can always go here and start just tweaking things in the animation panel. If he decides to appear. Because sometimes...
It's tired.
Yeah, it's tired of me. I think the computer is tired of me. Let me see in this other sequence. UI demo sequence. To be honest, I like that something is not working because it brings me a break of talking.
Well, and it's a good
this
chance
is
to kind of see what your workflow is. You
yeah.
know, if something goes wrong, how do you try and work around that?
No, that's cool. Let me see. This is the face. The animation of the face is here. Animation mode. Scary, scary. I think something is locked. Let me just go outside. This is the classic thing that this is not part of the demo. Why you are talking about this? And then and then this. Unless no, it should be appearing there. There we go. Okay, sorry, need to select. I don't know what I did, but hopefully it's recorded. I did something that works. Okay, that's right now. So I'm glad that I have to be honest. When I do live streams, it helps me a lot to debug. I don't need to check later. I say, okay, I know something happened there. Then I rewatch the video and it's like, I see what is going on. So
that's perfect.
so I can have control here of whatever I want to do. If I want to reanimate things, I can start changing frames. I can move the things. So you can do this in an additive layer if you want. You can delete keyframes. So this is more like a second stage where you can have the control with FaceRig all working together and trying to bring the best of both. So yeah, so that's more or less the workflow we do, both for the geometry and the animation. And yeah, now sorry for this beautiful. I'm gonna play a bit. Okay, this is a little better, not great, but better than the previous frame. And this is the workflow. Now I'm using Xsense and FaceGood, and I record the voice. I don't know if you can hear the sound. I hope so. Or maybe you can hear the sound. Can you hear the sound there?
I don't.
Okay, well, it's me doing the lines. Okay, so then we got Nasir Tarsha and Sara Secora matching my exact timing for the voice lines. Okay, and that's how we fire the two different lines for the same cinematic without needing to build two cinematics. I just asked them, hey, can you record? I know maybe my English is an experiment. It's just we are trying to define the workflow. So I literally improvised the lines and they just recorded my bad English, I guess, with their own timing and expression and tone and articulation. And it works because the body acting and the head acting is what matters. And the face acting also matches really well in the case of Demian, because it's the only face we got now. And that's what you can see here. If I go to the engine, I got the original voice. Yeah, maybe I remove it, but I got an original voice and then I replaced the voice by the voice acting. So yeah, we synchronize each other in the same place. Yeah, I think I got this one. Maybe if you can hear the engine, maybe you can hear this. Can you hear this? Maybe. One second.
Chris, we are not ready.
Yeah.
You know this.
Yeah.
Our DNA
So
not
this is
ready.
me, and then I got the other actors doing the different.
Chris,
Yeah.
we're not ready. You know this. Our DNA is not
All
ready.
of them. And Sarah.
Nice.
Damien, we're not ready. Our DNA.
With different changes in the line. So this opens the opportunity of doing kind of procedural storytelling depending on what character you want to play. Because this is multiplayer cooperative, in the moment you start the cinematic, you split two different cinematics, the same cinematic but with two different options for each player, with different kind of, like a little bit of Pulp Fiction moment there. And then you go back to the game together. So that was a bit of the workflow I defined there. Yeah, I show all this motion capture, and this is empty because it's basically what I showed you in the engines. Houdini, animation blueprint, just a little bit quick note if you want to see how it looks. It looks pretty simple because it's just ready for the cinematics, for the combat system. We are still working on that. So let's go to create characters, hero. Let's go for master. So yeah, very simple. What we do here is valid, and the important thing is we are taking a final rotation. This is just to have a little of a spine movement. But because we are talking about the cinematics, let's go to the point of what is important, which actually happens not in the body blueprint, but in the face blueprint. By the way, something really cool. You can do a report noise in the animation blueprint for the AI if you go faster than a specific speed. So that's how I trigger AI to know that I'm running. I don't do this in the montages because it's a lot of events. What I do is like, hey, if you are faster than 200 units, just fire a noise event every half a second. So if you want to be quiet, you need to go lower than 300. Anyway, the blueprint that matters here is the face blueprint, which is always the 90 degrees head rotated, because the head comes from other place. So we use a socket, for example. So we use the copy post from mesh, which is the mesh you can see in the parent class. You can see this, use attach parent. If you want to fit your own mesh for a specific reason, you can fit here any mesh as long as you call it in the event graph. And then you can just start using a socket from that mesh to, in this case, replace the position of your neck. Okay, in this case, the neck, you can use the spine, depending on what you feel is better. So what happens here, what I'm doing here, if I go to the mesh of Demian, let me see what is the quickest way of finding it. Basically from the character, it's gonna be okay. And maybe I see some hair going crazy there. Okay. So here, you are gonna see different sockets. The one we are using is a socket called Meta. This is basically where our head starts, and we use this socket with a specific rotation. So if I go here, I'm going to put this in another screen, and then I'm going to open, let's say, this one. Let's go through the camera. Let's remove the gameplay things. If I start moving this socket, I'm going to see my head moving. Yeah, and the head works really nice. We can go heavy metal. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here is basically this. Okay, now let's control set, because I spent a lot of time into having these specific values because the body and the head neck area is skinned a little bit different. We need to fix that. So now there is a magical number that everything works, and if you move that, you're gonna see intersections and things like that. But yeah, now it's working. In fact, I would like to tweak, and you see how I work, the messy light I did there. That was the point light, I think, in the bottom. Yeah, I think it's this one. Let's see. It is. So what I did here, I did a mess. So let's go to the cold light, lower. I'm gonna put this bigger so you can see how this feels. And I want to do less radius. We are using virtualized shadow maps, by the way, and Lumen, just to let you know. And let's bring, this specularity is quite low. I'm gonna bring the light higher, something like that. It looks more aggressive. And let's only illuminate one eye, more dramatic, more filmmaking, okay? Something like that, something like that. So now I'm gonna save the sequence as well. I'm gonna close all together, and hopefully, if I didn't break anything in all this presentation, that I might did it, let's see. We are gonna discover this together. We are all together in this boat. If we fail together. Okay, let's try. I'm just trying to I'm trying to blame someone that is not me, as you can see. Okay, all closed, all closed, all closed. Close this. I'm gonna close this. I'm closing everything. Okay. Yep. Yeah, RAM memory is my worst enemy. Okay. Nice. Let's take our rifle. This time, if you don't mind, I want to fight and see how everything feels. This is the ambient cinematic. As you can see, it's working and it's gonna collide with my cinematic. I can stop the cinematic if I want while the other cinematic is playing. Okay, let's be brave. I can be brave because I know this guy is just a placeholder, so it's not gonna kill me. Otherwise, I would run away. But, you know, just helps to create environment. I was very inspired by Senua Sacrifice, the final fight. There is a character that don't fight against you, but it's always like scaring you a lot. And that's really amazing. So, okay. Oh, I go to the cinematic. Cool, what is going on? And then you play the cinematic.
Chris, we are not ready. You know this. Our DNA is not ready. It is not our moment. You want to kill yourself? Go.
So the light now is different. Everything is directed with lighting.
Yeah, you can call me a coward now. I know you were waiting for this.
And then we will do the transition to how it was before.
At least I'm able to see our own limits. God damn it!
I'm gonna fight, eh? I'm gonna try.
Fine. Let's go.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Now the trick is, can you answer questions while you're fighting them?
Yeah. Wait, I'm gonna finish this now. Okay. I think it's enough. I'm very bad in my own game. Sorry about that. So yeah, we can jump into questions. I think more or less I covered most of the topics. I know I did some jumps. I hope I didn't mess too much for organizing the video later, but yeah, it's hard to me to be
It's all good.
organized in terms of linear. But yeah.
Let's see. Well, some in general, they're asking what your hardware specs are. So, what are you running? You know, as you have all these different tabs and different programs open.
No, I know. I want to give an honest answer because the honest answer is I have a Quadro RTX 8000 because NVIDIA sponsored me to beta test Omniverse, but
cool.
I don't want to give the wrong impression that you need this graphic card to do this. I test the game in the laptop every single day. And we are in 60, 50 FPS in a potato machine, which is like bad, you know, like the laptop. So that's the graphic card. The CPU is a i9, I don't remember now the model. And RAM memory is my weakest point, which is, I don't know, I think it's like 40 something, 42. And when you have many software at the same time and OBS and all together, I got this kind of crashes based again in RAM memory, not in GPU. GPU is fine. I mean, I can show you what is the big offender here. So hertz, okay, and that's because I'm going wild. I'm not optimizing the hertz, and that's what is the worst part right now, the hertz. And yes, Lumen there is a hit of performance of Lumen, but Lumen works more like a kind of democratizer. It's gonna take GPU budget for sure, but it means like anyone can have global illumination because it's hardware agnostic, and that's the beauty of Lumen. Do you want to have real-time global illumination? Okay, give me some milliseconds. It's a trade-off, but I think it's a trade-off that it's worth because if you have a very bad computer, you can put the global illumination off, and that's it. So yeah, we use Lumen and we feel comfortable. We test Lumen in multiplayer. We test Lumen time to time with specific environments, and we didn't find any problems on that. And yeah, if I'm bound by something, I think it's gonna be. Yeah, I mean, it's the character movement. Not a big deal right now. Not a big deal. Because we are not optimizing yet the geometry. We are not optimizing there. I can show you. We have a hybrid here of. Well, let me just go to here. And yeah, we are using also some nanite. By the way, I'm gonna show you a tiny workflow trick. So yeah, nanite is on in some of the geometry, not in this one. Why not in this one? I'm gonna show you why. The pixel depth is not compatible with Nanite, but I found that if the mesh is the one colliding with Nanite, you can use pixel depth with either. So you can see that transition there smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny trick, you can use the combination of Nanite with, well, this is bad because, I put the geometry very low, but you can use this trick like, yeah, I got my environment with Nanite, but I want this specific geometry to be blended with Nanite. Okay, use the material only for the geometry and don't use Nanite in that specific material. So you can have the best of both things together. So yeah, that's the specs and that's what the tech we use. And that's how we try just to push the things with Nanite, Lumen, trying to optimize all these things, yeah.
Would you mind sharing with the folks how you quickly pulled up those stats?
Oh, yeah. The stats, I always check, if you want just to profiling, the trick is the first thing you need to do is stat unit. So here you can see what you are bound. And I can see GPU bound. The higher the number, the frame is going to be quite close to the biggest if it's the GPU or is the game. So I'm bound by the GPU. The GPU is my limit right now. So I say, okay, I know it's the GPU. So the next thing I need to do is to go to stat, GPU. And then I can see, okay, what is the biggest offender, shadow depths, head strand visibility, etc., etc., etc. If by any case you are bound, means like the CPU, the game frame is bigger than the GPU frame, which maybe you have this in an RTS strategy game or something that you have a lot of AI, you can find a situation, you need to go to stat, game, and then you will find a lot of stuff here. Okay?
Great.
And when you are not happy and you don't want to see the reality, you want to put stat none, and the game is now all good. Because if you don't see the problems don't exist.
They don't exist?
No, they exist, but you can fix that later. No, I don't want to do apology of being a mess.
Well, we're kind of talking about performance and that Vision's Mind was wondering if you're using the same model and rig for gameplay and your cinematics, and if that is how is that affecting any of your performance, or is it much at all?
Yeah, we were using different models like 3 weeks ago because this MetaHuman change happened literally 2 weeks ago. We used different models for the cinematic events and the gameplay. Right now, no, because for this demo I didn't have the time to do the different LODs. But the idea is that, yeah, the plan is to jump into the cinematic LOD and then go back to the optimized LOD. What you are seeing here is, again, moving forward, and then we need to do a step backwards. Moving forward, a step backwards. So right now, yeah, you see everything just ingested to the engine as it comes. But in the future, for sure, 100%, you need to do LODs for the face, for the body, and for the hair. Remember that you have now with Alembic a beautiful... I'm going to show you because I think it's quite interesting. Let's go to Demian. Actually, it's even easier. I got it here. Demian. I'm going to go to the hair asset. It's going to be rotated. But I think you are going to have an idea. So you can create LODs inside the engine of hair. So you just need to go to LOD, and here you can just press plus, and here you can just define, okay, this LOD is going to be 0.3. Let's leave it like default. I'm going to press enter. You need to change the number one time to regenerate, and this is going to create the LOD for me. And as you can see down there, you can see the distance where this LOD is fired by the screen size. If I need to compensate that with the thickness, because now I have less strands, I need to put more thickness, and so on. So yeah, I recommend you to have a look to this. And also you can just fire strands, you can fire geometry, hair, or what is the other cards? Cards, yeah, like the basic video work cards with alpha and transparent. So now after this, you will see that my hair, if I go to 1, this is optimized already with less, it's clearly thicker and less amount. If I go to 0, I have this. So yeah, you should optimize your hair because it's gonna be now, if it becomes a standard for video games, you need to take care of when you fire the Alembic hair and when you fire the cards. And most of the cases, for gameplay, I can assume that even if we are in a new generation of games, you still want to have geometry and cards for the gameplay. But, and this is the point, in the cinematics, we are ready to bring this. In fact, we are so ready that one trick to make the cinematics more cinematics or more cinematographic, I'm going to make up my own words. One of the tricks is locking your frame rate to 24 because it's what our brain understands as a movie. So here you can go to this part and lock. Here you can lock this to 24 and you can lock this to the display rate at runtime. So with this means that I'm not gonna run faster than 20 FPS, and it's gonna give a cinematic looking right now. So this means that you have a lot of room and budget to bring your cinematic assets into the cinematics, because 20 FPS in a game is not playable right now, but in a cinematic, it is completely fair, and it's going to help a lot to tell the stories. And I was experimenting of later, you can move from 20 FPS to whatever is the maximum FPS in the game, either dynamic or static, and you can do a lerp. You can do a lerp from 24 to 50 or 24 to whatever is set. It works really well. You just need to be careful of putting that back to 50, but yeah. I don't remember even the question, to be honest.
We were talking about LODs.
Wow. Wow, really? Okay. That's
it's all good. It's great information. So, you know, kind of talking about the metahuman characters and stuff, they were wondering, so you created the metahuman head, but have you created a totally separate body? And then you're just mapping those two together, right? In Engine?
Yeah, exactly. The ZBrush is quite related with with this. The ZBrush sculpted body, it was done in ZBrush. Then I just rig entirely without head. We got a placeholder. I think I got. Let me open Blender. I got a placeholder of the head, which is just a volume.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can see this here. So this is what we got. So for the animator, they have a reference of the face. And then we have the MetaHuman head, or I mean, being honest, the ZBrush head with the MetaHuman technology,
Right.
done in Maya. It's chaotic, but it's working. And that is exported with these guys raised by monsters. And we got the skeletal mesh of the head, the skeletal mesh of the body, and using a socket in the animation blueprint, we put the head in the correct position. But the animators, at least, if they are not doing facial animation, they can do all the animation here in Blender. And that's the workflow we are doing now when we are using keyframe animation. When we are doing motion capture, more or less the same. I don't have Houdini open, but yeah, what you saw before is just the body with the placeholder of the head, because I know this is going to be the volume where the head is going to be. And for an animator that is not doing facial animation, it's enough for the silhouette most of the cases. So yeah, it can be improved 100%. Is it working so far? 100% too. So yeah, things to improve, things to think about. We want to merge all together, because I don't know if you noticed, in the concept, there is a tiny thing that it's going to be hard, but we want to try at some point. Let me just show you. In the concept of Demian, yeah, I don't know if you notice, there is no separation between the head and the body, and that's part, by the way, of the storytelling. They are completely merged with the suit. Right now, they are not. So I'm experimenting in shader level, but the good way of doing this is having only one geometry. And we are thinking different ways. It's still quite experimental, because now that means that we need to transfer all the blend shapes and rig board from metahumans to an entire body, only the face to an entire body, and UVs, UV sets, complicated, but who knows? We are thinking about it. Maybe in the future. That's the next level to me right now. I'm not very worried about it. We can find solutions in shader level as well. And again, sometimes the simple solution is the best, and you can do something like a dither in the neck or maybe sculpting and perfectly match one thing to the other, you can find, good reasons to use 2 skeletal meshes instead of 1. Yeah.
Great. Let's see. Captain Lens Flares was asking, for cinematics, do you have any tips for how to get the face capture to match the body animations when you don't necessarily have a full body motion capture suit?
Yeah, I mean, you don't shoot both things at the same time. The only solution is having a lot of resources and a lot of takes, and then in the same way you do video editing, you have a lot of sad expressions, lip sync, and you just paint your shot. You don't just synchronize your shot. You paint. You take, okay, here is blinking, and you have only blinks, and then you have only lip sync, and then you have only different body motions, and you weight the different layers. In the same way, here I got this animation. I'm scared of doing this because the sequencer is calling a lot of references, but I'm gonna risk because I feel
We're gonna give it a go. We're doing it live.
Let's give it a go. So I can create, for example, let's go to the skeletal mesh. This is the intro. So I'm gonna add a new animation, which is gonna be, who knows, man. Demian tag blocked. Okay, cool. So now we got to animation. Let me just go outside the camera so we see what the hell is going on. So you can see there a mix of 2 animations. The thing you need to keep in mind is that you might need to, now in Sequencer, there is a new workflow that you might want to have a look, which is this one. I'm gonna put these guys together, and it's almost working. I'm impressed. Wow, it's working. Okay, something under the hood happened to make this matching. I don't know if it's lag. You know why it's working? Because I'm exactly in the root motion already there. Let me just push. I'm gonna break everything. Let me just go here and put this here. Yeah, you see the jump goes there. So that's the only thing you need to be careful when you do this if you are using root motion, that you need to prevent that your root motion is not using this take, and then you jump to root motion and then it's gonna do this. This is what would happen in the game as well. But if you have all these things together, there is a new workflow that I recommend you to experiment, which is match with this bone in the previous clip, root, for example. The thing is, it's not going to work because I don't have root motion in one of the clips. But if you have root motion in both of the clips or hip motion in both of the clips that they are in the same position, you can use this workflow of matching this. So when you do the transition, it's going to be exactly in the same world transform where that joint is at that moment. So that's a very powerful thing. And that's how you can paint different skeletal meshes, different facial animation, and trying to paint your shot with different ideas. So yeah, you don't have like a combined solution with facial capture and body capture. Just do a lot of takes and, try to find the moment. If the guy rotates the head because he's saying something, try to find something in the face that matches that kind of attitude. It's sometimes you can do this for sure. Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stepping back a little bit and talking about Crete, they're wondering, how many people are working on the project? How big's your team?
Yeah, I mean, this is like any project, like the Cito Yuna, Summer, Crete, it's always like a roller coaster. And something they know about me is like, I come out from the blue like, hey, I want to do this, So sometimes we are 3, sometimes we are 5, sometimes we are 10. Sometimes it's me alone in the corner trying to do the things because obviously we got a grant and the grant was for the Cito Yuna. And what we thought is like, okay, the Cito Yuna now, we got the full screenplay. We want to do the movie. I don't want to waste the grant into just creating another trailer. We got trailers, we got the pilot, we got many things of content. We want to create something that helps to any potential project that we got. And the mega grant team, they were happy just to find a smart solution of how to use the grant for anything. So it was like, okay, let's do this experiment of trying to capture the essence of the Cito Yuna into a video game. So at that moment, I was hiring freelance people that they are becoming part of the team. But again, a mega grant is not an investment, is a grant. So that means that we are not in payroll here yet. We are prototyping. This means that sometimes people is busy working at Pixomondo or working at DNEG. I can tell them, hey, leave your job and go full 100% on this, because we are now here an announcement. We will find at some point a scenario where we need to find proper funding and not a grant, because a grant, again, is very clear in the documentation, it's a grant, it's not an investment. So we want to use the grant to create R&D, to create storytelling tools, to create universes connected a little bit with the idea behind the Cito Juna. So the answer, sometimes we are 5, sometimes we are 7, sometimes we are 2. It depends on the moment, the availability, what we need. So yeah, not clear answer. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I mean, it varies is obviously very much a part of the process. So,
Yeah.
Jim Bacalo was wondering if there are specific console commands that you use on a regular basis to either enhance your quality or performance, or, we kind of went over the stats before for reference, but are there any others that you found really useful?
I think the best way is to see what is the latest use. Yeah, I can tell you what. All the lag. We test multiplayer. So yeah, all these guys here are very useful to test this in very, very, very bad conditions in multiplayer. So I'm gonna do something scary because I didn't test client since 2 weeks ago.
Well, good thing it's Halloween season.
Let's see. It could explode. Okay, it's working. So, okay, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. So one of the ones I use a lot is just multiplayer testing. Let's start here. Cool. So now I'm gonna put a lag of, there we go, 2000. You will never play like this in your entire life. And if you do, consider not playing again like this, honestly. So 2000, okay? This is 2000 of lag. This is insanely big. I'm gonna take this gun and I'm gonna take this sword. I'm gonna shoot with the gun. Wow. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna shoot with the gun. And as you can see, I don't know if you can feel, yeah, you can see the moment in the impact and the moment when it arrives. But at least I have the shooting, it happens instantly because I'm predicting locally the animation and the sound effect. The same thing with the sword. Again, 2000 of lag, that's massive. As you can see now, the character thinks that I have the gun yet because it's not catching up with my movement. But sometimes, even with this amount of lag, it just kind of works. If I go back to 2000, let's say 500, which is a very bad connection, that's kind of working already. So this is one of the things we test a lot, really bad lag conditions for multiplayer. Like now it's hitting with the gun. And that's why we use Gas, because Gas has a beautiful system of prediction where you can just fire locally all the animations, all the effects, all the things that they are not gameplay related, and you leave for the server later to confirm if you hit or not. This means damage, this means knockdown, this means death. Anything that is gameplay relevant goes to the server but doesn't happen locally at that moment. Locally, what you want locally is the feel of the game when you play multiplayer. You want the character to move in the moment you press W, and you want the character to feel the shooting in the moment you press left click. However, the damage, you will need to wait depending on your connection. And Gas offers this opportunity of separating the logic in both worlds, but I guess that's for another presentation. Multiplayer is an entire world, and I was working multiplayer during this entire year, and it's a rabbit hole that you can't. It's incredible. I mean, I'm fascinated by all the potentiality of multiplayer and Gas.
Yeah, it's definitely an undertaking, or can be at least, depending on the kind of experience you're building. It can be for sure. What do you feel like from a high level is your approach to like debugging or testing in a cinematic UE project, right? There's some, lots of folks do the stops in the code for any issues they're experiencing in their gameplay, but how do you necessarily approach it from a cinematic perspective?
I'm trying to get the question right. Can you rephrase in another? I'm
So
trying
if
to.
if
So
you're
how I
seeing
debug
if you're
cinematic?
seeing yeah, like
Yeah.
if something's going wrong or you're seeing things that aren't playing out quite right, where do you start?
In the
Um,
cinematic.
mhm.
I guess I'm trying to picture my problems in the last days. Most of the cases is binding references. So what I check is what data I send into the cinematic. In this case, if you are doing this kind of references, so I mean, you can use breaker points, you can do many things to understand what is going on, but most of the cases, by intuition, I just go, let's say, to the cinematic volume, and I say, okay, am I sending the correct? I want to see what I'm sending. So in the moment I save all the references, here I got before print. So I'm disabling the correct input. So who is the player controller? Okay, so I go here, I put my player controller. Okay, cool, nice guy. So now what is the character I'm sending to the cinematic? Let's see. So before I send that here, so yeah, I want to know, hey, who are you? Who are you? So I go here and I do another noise printing, maybe printing.
Yeah.
And then I print this, blah, blah, so all this stuff. So that's how I would do this. By the way, tiny trick that is getting some attention little by little. If you right click, you have in the preferences of the editor, this beautiful thing, disable. And you don't need to break your spaghettis. You can just leave this disabled. And you can change also if this works for a development or works for always or debug or whatever different options you have there. So I found this like literally 2 weeks ago in a video. It's like, yeah, you have, I'm not going to go through the settings, but it's something like called Blueprint. Yeah, it's a bind. It's like disable. I think it's not in the project. It's in the editor settings. So yeah, it's called like something like Blueprint, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, what I do is putting prints everywhere. If you want, you can also obviously breakpoints. Yeah, like most of the cases, if you are working with cinematics, you see another character that is not there. Is like, okay, in what moment you just go back? In what moment this is set? In what moment I set this variable? Where this happens? Is it correct? I'm gonna tell you one problem I got is like I was calling the child of this actor, which was Demian, and Chris never appeared in the cinematic, and it's like, oh, of course, because the reference is the child, is not the parent. I need to get the parent to be agnostic to whatever is the child. And now everything works because I found that reference. But nothing different of how I debug any other gameplay feature. Cinematics are cinematics, but references are, universal. Casting is universal. Sending events with interfaces are universal. So it's the same procedures, more or less.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
For Crete, actually, they're wondering, in its creation, what inspirations did you draw from? What media, like games, films? Are there things that directly inspired Crete?
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of, for some reason, end up in very twisted stuff. In fact, some of the concept artists at the very beginning, they suffer my designs because they are twisted and they are creepy, quite creepy. And one of the inspirations, obviously, is the horror of Lovecraft or H.R. Giger, Biopunk, Matrix, things like, rather than going into the cyberpunk era, I really feel that now we are going to land in the biopunk era somehow in terms of storytelling or the pop culture. This happens every 5-10 years. We can see how the movies move into one direction and the other. 10 years ago, it was all about giant robots. 5 years ago, it was about space exploration with Gravity, Interstellar. Right now, we are jumping, cyberpunk, with all the cyber, with the release of Cyberpunk. We are in the Cyberpunk era, but now with the release of Doom and with the release of Matrix, by the way, I was amazingly lucky of working Matrix 4. So one of the inspirations, obviously, of Creative was like, damn, if Matrix is going out, I want to do something as well inspired by that. So that's Matrix is kind of biopunk, like bioengineering, biomodifying, the machines, like the bodies. I hope Matrix is not a spoiler anymore, right? Matrix 1, of course. I hope everyone watch or know at least know what it's about. I hope. So yeah, Matrix, Biopunk, and I thought Doom is also kind of Biopunk universe. I thought I always feel attracted. The Seto Yuna was Biopunk. Maybe not that punk, but at least bio for sure. So yeah, that's the designs. All the designs of the ancestors. If I go here, at the very beginning, it's a mix. Many people say, "Oh, Prometheus." Well, there are many inspirations. It is Prometheus. It is Attack on Titan. It is Geiger designs. It is Stranger Things with the design of Aaron Sims, that they do pretty amazing stuff, like opening the mouth and all that stuff. And also somehow inspired by the Seto Yuna itself. You know, when you are in the loop of something that you created before, you copy to yourself things and ideas. We are recycling ideas of the Seto Yuna in Creed because, you know, you use everything. It's like every single company that create original content is like a mess of different ideas, and then you merge and you take one ideas from the other place. And in fact, I don't know if it's visible here. This one comment I said, hey, some of the projects need to be on hold. Was a project I call CRISPR-10, which is based in bioengineer. I want to make this like I want to bring some ideas of this game, of this pilot into a game, which is about the option of biomodifying your body to be stronger, to be smarter, to be faster, like Gattaca movie, I think, if I'm not wrong. For example, you can see documentaries on Netflix about biohacking, and it's like, wow, that's an amazing way of building abilities. The characters rapidly modify their DNA in gameplay, and this is the plot twist, not to be better in terms of attributes or, you know, like role play, like RPG, but playing different, more like tactical, like similar to Valorant, for example. By the way, I want to know if Valorant is using game ability system. And yeah, that's more or less the inspiration, taking ideas from one place to the other, and using the science and the pop culture as a reference. And science is because before jumping to a project, as you can see, there is an abstract there. I just read that paper entirely. So,
Oh gosh.
you know, yeah, no, but it's really fun. Sometimes it's more fun than many books. Trust me. Like papers are really fun sometimes, not always. But yeah, that's the inspiration. A mix of science, a mix of you know, geniuses like Geiger or Lovecraft, and a mix of past projects.
Awesome. Well, I'm wondering, is there anything you'd like to leave the community with, or any encouraging words if somebody's wanting to get into this space as well? What advice would you offer them?
100%. I know this because I saw this in other live sessions. So I prepare this slide for all you.
Oh, you were ready.
Yeah. So there are two best teachers in the world. One of them is do your own projects. This is the fastest way you are going to learn. Don't get rusty. I've been in the two parts. I've been working in personal projects and I've been inside the industry. Trust me, you want to have personal projects for a specific reason. Let's say that you want to learn, let's say, FX simulation or animation. If it's not a personal project, if it's just something like you are learning and you are not doing a pilot or a game or something big, in the moment you feel stuck, most likely your brain is going to say, okay, I'm going to jump into something else. You're going to give up somehow. The brain is like that. If you don't see the final goal, you know, you say, okay, whatever, done, bye. But if you have to release a pilot like the Seto Yuna or a game like Creed, trust me, many times I would just throw the computer, take the computer through out the window because I don't know how to solve a problem. I need to call someone. I talk with Jailborne or with Andrew, the other programmer, like, dude, I have a problem. I don't know how to fix that because I know I'm somehow tied by a project. I can't escape the project, and it's not bad. That's how you grow. You grow by putting you in stress situations. When you go to the gym, the only way of growing your muscles is putting the muscles into stress. That's why you grow. The brain is the same. If you don't put stress to the brain in a healthy way, because there is bad stress and good stress, you are not going to grow because your brain is going to say, okay, bye. I'm not interested into doing this. I'm going to jump into the next thing. Do your own projects is very, very helpful. The other second best teacher is observation. Observation of the world, the universe. This is how you can learn how to animate, how to do lighting, how to do a dialogue. It's timeless and it's transferable skill in Unreal Engine 5, in Unreal Engine 7, in any other software. You are going to be better if you pay attention of the details. If you are an animator, you need to pay attention of body language. Don't be a creepy on the street checking everyone, but you can read behavior. If you are a lighter, you can understand how the light behaves in the real world. And this is something that is like a kind of pattern that you train yourself to pay attention to the details. A good storyteller or a good game designer is not necessarily the one that controls the software, but the ones that understand when something feels good or doesn't feel good. This is transferable to Uncanny Valley, transferable to bad feel in a game, transferable even to replication in multiplayer. There is something that tells you, this is not good, because you already absorb a lot of content from the reality. So yeah, these two teachers, do your own projects and observation, observe the world. It's beautiful. And yeah, thank you. Really amazing to be part of this live session. I'm really glad. I hope my chaotic blueprints and back and forth and different things I wanted to tell created exploded some brains, but I'm really thankful, and it's an amazing opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You had loads of great information, and I assume the best place to keep tabs on your projects is not only it's mayhemmirror.com, but then also your Twitch and YouTube channels, which you do tons of videos and streams, or you walk through content and whatever you're developing on, right? Best place? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I want to do a disclaimer. This was a 2 hours video, more or less, with a lot of content. When I do the Twitch sessions and YouTube sessions, prepare for the worst in terms of me stress out with massive blueprints, but people help me out. I want to thank everyone that jumps to the stream and tells me, dude, you are not setting the reference. Oh, you're right. Thank you. So yeah, the Twitch sessions are dense, are long, sometimes are 6 hours, very late. But I decided to create more open because we don't have too much. I didn't have the opportunity when I was learning VFX or animation to see this from inside. So I think now I can just, take all that experience that I got from VFX and show this live on Twitch and YouTube. And even if it's not that fancy and, dynamic like a live stream, sometimes people catch things. So yeah, Twitch and YouTube, I stream in both of them. I don't have a favorite. I think they are both amazing platforms with different colors, and that's pretty much it.
Well, I think the thing to keep in mind there is that it's actual live development, right? This is something you've prepared to walk through and hit certain beats and to share, but that is a very different experience, right? And so I think there's a lot to learn from seeing how you work through problems or approach problems. It's very different and still very valuable. So make sure to catch Alvaro on the streams. We've been dropping the links in chat. Again, thank you so much for coming. And then to all of our community, thanks for coming and hanging out. We always appreciate all of your questions in the chat. And feel free to follow us on our social channels for all the latest Unreal Engine news and happenings in the community. It's basically whatever social channel / Unreal Engine, and you'll find, or at Unreal Engine, and you'll find us. We'll drop a link in chat for our survey, which was, let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future, or how we're doing, or what we can do better. So really appreciate it. We'll see you all next week for the 2021 Epic Mega Jam results stream. So get ready to see us playing some games live and sharing all your awesome creations from the jam. Alvaro, thanks again, and we hope you, the community, have a fantastic week. See you next week.
Bye-bye.